The mind is a powerful tool, and we are often a reflection of what we think. Our thoughts are not just fleeting ideas. They have a profound impact on both our physical and emotional health, whether we are conscious of them or not. To understand this concept clearly, let's break it down simply without all the complicated jargon, but still keeping the depth intact. Imagine you're walking down the street and suddenly a thief appears out of nowhere. At that moment, your body automatically goes into alert mode, activating the survival system within you. Cortisol, a crucial hormone, is released into your body. This chemical signal quickly travels throughout your system, preparing your muscles, speeding up your breathing, and increasing your heart rate. Your body is ready to respond with two primary options, fight or flee. Everything is working as it should. This reaction has kept our species alive for thousands of years. However, here's where the issue arises. Our brain, no matter how sophisticated it may be, doesn't distinguish between real and imagined threats. In other words, the same survival mechanism that kicks in when we face a real danger, like an armed robber, is activated when our mind starts to imagine catastrophic scenarios. What if I don't make it to the end of the month? What if I lose my job? What if my partner betrays me? What if my child is in trouble? What if I get sick? Every time you spiral into these what if questions, even if nothing is actually happening at the moment, your body reacts as if you're facing a real, imminent danger. The result, you release more cortisol, your alert system activates once again, and gradually your body starts to live in a state of chronic tension. And here's the serious warning from neuroscience. Living constantly flooded with cortisol due to either real or imagined thoughts causes deep changes on 3 levels: physical, psychological, and behavioral. Physically, excess cortisol can lead to inflammation, hair loss, disturbances in gut health, immune system problems, rapid heartbeat, muscle tension, and even numbness in the limbs. Psychologically, it can trigger irritability, memory problems, difficulty concentrating, anxiety, and deep sadness. Behaviorally, it can lead to isolation, avoidance of social contact, and withdrawal from the world around us. That's why it's so crucial to understand that our thoughts are not neutral. The quality of our life is directly linked to the quality of our thoughts. If we constantly fill our minds with fear, distrust, guilt, or hopelessness, our bodies will respond as if they are under constant threat. But the opposite is also true. When we cultivate thoughts of gratitude, love, compassion, or fond memories from the past, our bodies respond with a completely different, much healthier, and more restorative chemistry. This leads to another key point that many of us overlook. It's not just about what we think about the world around us. It's also about what we think about ourselves. The inner dialogue, the voice that is with us all day long, plays a huge role in our well-being. Sometimes this voice is kind and encouraging, but other times it's harsh, critical, and unforgiving. I call it the inner voice. It's that constant narrative running in the background, which often takes up a large part of our day. It may say things like, "Don't try it, you won't succeed," "That person doesn't appreciate you," "You're not enough," "You always mess things up." Even though we may ignore it at times, its effect accumulates. In my therapeutic practice, I've seen how this inner voice is directly connected to self-esteem, how we face challenges, and our ability to see opportunities rather than threats. What's most surprising is that in many cases, this voice was not originally ours. It's like a recording from the past, a lingering echo of things we heard in childhood, a parent comparing us to a sibling, a mother underestimating our abilities, a teacher making us feel less capable, a grandfather making hurtful comments. It could also come from adult experiences, a partner who humiliated us, a boss who didn't respect us. Over time, these external voices are internalized, and they become part of our internal narrative, shaping how we treat ourselves. If you want to identify your inner voice, stop and ask yourself, when I criticize myself, what words do I use? Who do they remind me of? If you notice that the voice is harsh, demanding, and full of judgments, it's likely that you're repeating a learned pattern. The good news is that pattern can be changed. The first step is to recognize that this inner voice influences not only your self-esteem, but also how you perceive the world. Studies have shown that when we speak badly to ourselves, we tend to interpret our environment as more hostile. We believe others are judging us, that they don't appreciate us, or that we are not accepted. It becomes a vicious cycle. The worse we speak to ourselves, the more threats we perceive, and the more threats we perceive, the worse we speak to ourselves. Breaking this cycle isn't easy, but it is possible. To break this cycle, we need to understand that transforming the inner voice from an enemy to an ally can be one of the most powerful changes we make in our lives. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen through willpower alone. It requires consistent effort, self-compassion, and practical strategies, but it is absolutely possible to rewire your brain and shift from a voice that sabotages to one that supports. One of the first steps in this process is recognizing that this voice isn't a neutral observer. It's not just a random thought that pops into your head. It's deeply connected to patterns we've reinforced over the years. When we consistently tell ourselves negative things, our brain starts to believe them as truths. It's like a broken record that keeps playing the same song over and over, shaping our reality. In fact, in neuroscience, what I call the inner voice is known as the default mode network, a system that becomes activated when we're not focused on specific tasks. Researchers like Marcus Rachel discovered this by examining brain scans and noticing that even when the brain is at rest, it remains active, creating spontaneous thoughts and judgments. It's that constant stream of ideas, evaluations, and memories that seems to switch on automatically. Here's the interesting part: this system isn't neutral. It leans toward reinforcing patterns we've lived with for years. If, throughout our lives, we've received negative messages like "you're not good enough," "you'll never succeed," or "you always mess things up," this default network will recycle those phrases. It doesn't do this to hurt us, but because our brains are wired for repetition. What we repeat gets strengthened. Problem arises when those repeated messages are toxic, and they become the soundtrack of our lives. In my practice, I often see two types of people when it comes to their inner voice. The first group consists of those who live trapped in guilt over past decisions. They often think, "I shouldn't have married that person, I shouldn't have taken that job, or I ruined my life by making that mistake." The second group is those suffering from imposter syndrome. Despite their achievements, they feel they don't deserve what they have, and they're constantly afraid of being exposed as frauds. Both groups share a common thread, an inner voice that fails to acknowledge their merits and instead expects failure. And when we dig into the origins of these voices, we often find that much of it comes from childhood. That's why I emphasize to parents and educators how important it is to be mindful of how we speak to children. The way we describe them and the way we speak about them in front of others leaves deep imprints. Comments like, "Your brother is smarter than you," "You're unbearable," or "You'll never amount to anything" resonate deeply and can become part of the internal narrative. What's fascinating is that even if, as adults, we forget the exact circumstances, those phrases still remain within us, resurfacing in moments of doubt or stress as though they are our own ideas. But it's not always childhood that shapes this voice. It can also come from negative adult experiences, like a partner who disrespected us, a boss who devalued us, or a group of friends who made us feel inferior. The crucial point is not when these things happened, but that at some point we unconsciously accepted them as valid references for who we are. Understanding the origin of the voice is key because it gives us a roadmap for change. We can't just silence the inner voice, but we can re-educate it. And the first step in that re-education process is observing the voice without judgment. Every time you catch yourself thinking something negative, ask yourself, "Is this thought truly mine, or did I inherit it from someone else? Does this belief truly define me, or is it just an echo of the past?" That pause, even if it's small, is an act of mental freedom. At its core, the inner voice is simply a reflection of what we've believed for years. And if we learn to speak to ourselves in a harmful way, we can also learn to speak to ourselves kindly. But here's where it gets interesting. Changing the inner voice isn't about repeating empty motivational phrases. It's about creating an internal dialogue that is realistic, compassionate, and helpful. In the next section, we'll dive into how to identify exactly which phrases are causing you the most harm, and how to replace them with ones that encourage calm and action instead of fear. Changing the inner voice isn't about magic. It's about consistent practice. It requires training your mind to reject the old patterns and replace them with new, healthier ones. The first step is to recognize the negative phrases that are deeply ingrained in your inner dialogue. Not all self-criticism carries the same weight. Some things we say to ourselves barely register, while others cut deep, leaving lasting impressions. For example, think of a minor mistake, like forgetting an appointment or getting the directions wrong. You might just say that was a silly mistake and move on, but if your reaction is something like, "I'm a disaster, no one can stand me," you're facing a deeper belief that goes beyond just the mistake. That kind of thinking isn't just about what happened, it's about who you think you are. In therapy, I often work with clients to uncover what I call root phrases, those internal affirmations that, repeated over time, shape our behavior and relationships. For example, "I'm not affectionate," "I'm not intelligent," "I don't deserve love," "I always fail," or "no one takes me seriously." When someone can identify their root phrase, they begin to understand where it comes from and how it has influenced their life. I recall a client who shared that every time she argued with someone close to her, her inner voice would say, "I'm just not a good enough person for them to love me." When we explored her history, we found that she grew up in a family where affection was rare and conditional. That lack of love became a belief that affection had to be earned through effort and perfection. The second step, once you've pinpointed your root phrase, is to respond to it. Don't let it go unchecked. Instead, counter it with an alternative that is realistic and constructive. Going back to the example, if your inner voice says, "I'm not affectionate," you can respond with, "I'm learning to express more affection," or "I'm working on becoming more loving." This isn't about deceiving yourself. It's about reframing your narrative toward progress instead of staying stuck in self-condemnation. This is where what I call mental push-ups come into play. These are small daily exercises that strengthen your positive internal dialogue. The goal isn't forced optimism, but to practice responses that shift you away from self-attack and guide you toward action. For example, if you think, "I'm distant," challenge that thought by doing something small but kind, like greeting a colleague warmly, sending a thoughtful message, or offering a sincere compliment. These small changes, though they may seem minor, are incredibly powerful. Every time you act in line with your new narrative, your brain records the experience and weakens the old neural connections. In simple terms, you stop reinforcing the "I'm not good enough" circuit and start strengthening the "I can improve" circuit. But there's one important thing to keep in mind: consistency. Just like you don't develop physical strength with a single gym session, you won't transform your inner voice with a few attempts. Repetition is the key ingredient that turns a one-off action into a habit and, over time, a new way of thinking. Now that we've started to reprogram our inner dialogue and replace harmful thoughts with healthier ones, it's time to dive into a crucial aspect of this process: managing anticipatory fear. This is the automatic mechanism that makes us imagine worst-case scenarios before they happen. The plane that might crash, the meeting that could go wrong, the phone call that might bring bad news. This tendency to catastrophize is deeply embedded in the human brain, and like with our inner voice, it's a learned pattern that can be changed. The body doesn't distinguish between real and imagined threats. When your mind anticipates something negative, it triggers the same stress response as if the event is happening right now. The sympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for putting us into fight or flight mode, takes over. Your heart races, your breath quickens, your muscles tense up. This is the same physical reaction you'd have if you were running from danger, but here, the danger is only in your mind. And if we don't learn to regulate it, this state can persist for hours or even days, draining our energy and harming our health. One of the simplest yet most effective ways to interrupt this cycle is through conscious breathing. It may sound too simple, but this technique is supported by solid scientific evidence. When we take slow, deep breaths, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of the body that calms us down, helping us recover and repair. Let's imagine you're in an airplane and experience some turbulence. Your mind starts to race with thoughts like, what if something happens? What if it's really bad? In that moment, instead of letting the fear spiral out of control, focus on your breath. Inhale slowly for 4 counts, hold for 2, and exhale for 6. As you breathe, remind yourself of calming, factual statements like, the pilot is trained to handle turbulence, or this plane is built to withstand these conditions. This isn't just wishful thinking, it's emotional regulation. When you remind yourself of real, reassuring facts, your body begins to relax, reducing cortisol levels and preventing the fear from escalating. The goal of this practice is not to ignore your fears or pretend they're not there. Instead, you're teaching your body to respond with a calm, rational mindset, even in the face of anxiety. Because unchecked fear feeds more fear, and the more your mind spirals, the more the inner voice will use that as proof of a real threat. The mind, and by extension the body, will search for more signs of danger, creating a vicious cycle. But by calming the body, you can break that cycle and restore a sense of control. We can also distinguish 2 different types of thoughts that trigger this alert mode. The first is anticipatory anxiety. Something bad is going to happen. The second is self-deprecation. I'm not good enough for this. The first one leads us to fear a negative future outcome, while the second attacks our sense of self-worth in the present. Both are harmful, but by working on them with techniques like conscious breathing and cognitive restructuring, we can change how we react to these thoughts. Let's take an example. Imagine you're about to go into an important meeting. Your inner voice says, this is going to be a disaster. Instead of letting that thought take over, stop for a moment, breathe, and ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this will actually go badly? Is there something I can do right now to increase the chances of a successful outcome? This simple shift takes your focus from passive worry to active problem solving. It moves you from a state of helplessness to one of control, and when you break down these big fears into smaller, manageable actions, you find that most of the time the worst-case scenario doesn't happen. Over time, this practice helps to rewire your brain's default mode network. Instead of automatically scanning the environment for threats, your brain starts to look for opportunities and safety. It's like shifting gears from a defensive stance to an offensive one, where you proactively seek solutions rather than dwell on problems. When your brain is accustomed to looking for solutions, your inner voice softens. It no longer has to keep warning you about dangers that don't exist. Instead, it becomes a supportive ally that encourages problem-solving and calm rather than feeding into fear. This is where we begin to unlock something incredibly powerful, a brain that is attuned to finding solutions instead of catastrophizing, doesn't need to live in constant alert mode. And when the brain is not constantly in fight or flight mode, it becomes much easier to direct your energy toward things that actually matter, your goals, your relationships, and your well-being. But this isn't just about changing how you react to stress. It's also about feeding your brain with positive goals, dreams, and illusions. Your brain needs more than just protection from negative thoughts. It also needs direction, motivation, and a sense of purpose. When you give your brain a clear goal or a vision for your future, it shifts its focus toward that goal, seeking out opportunities that align with it. This is where the reticular activating system RAS comes into play. The RAS is a network of neurons in the brainstem that acts like a filter, determining which information reaches your conscious awareness. When you set a clear goal, like finding a new job, your RAS starts to prioritize information that will help you achieve that goal. You'll start noticing job listings, hearing relevant conversations, or seeing opportunities that were once invisible to you. This isn't magic, It's just your brain aligning itself with your intentions, scanning your environment for the information that supports your goals. As you begin to direct your mind toward positive goals and feed it with clear intentions, your reticular activating system becomes a powerful ally. However, there's a crucial point we must keep in mind: simply having a goal isn't enough. The brain needs more than just a vague idea of what you want. It needs something specific, something that provides real direction. Otherwise, it will fall back on old patterns, like scrolling through social media or seeking out distractions that give temporary pleasure but don't contribute to long-term growth. When your goals are vague, your brain will start to look for shortcuts or easy ways to get satisfaction, often choosing distractions that provide instant gratification. These might include mindlessly browsing the internet, indulging in entertainment, or spending time in environments that don't align with your true aspirations. The problem is that these distractions, while pleasurable in the moment, leave us feeling unfulfilled and disconnected from our deeper sense of purpose. The solution: feed your brain with clear, compelling goals that excite and motivate you. This is where visualization comes in. Visualization isn't just about daydreaming or imagining a perfect future. It's about vividly imagining your goal as already achieved. Picture what it looks like, how it feels, and how your life has changed as a result. This practice helps your brain perceive these goals as real, activating your RAS to filter the environment for opportunities and actions that align with this vision. For example, if your goal is to get fit, don't just say, "I want to get healthier." Instead, visualize what being fit looks like for you. Imagine yourself running, feeling strong and energized, or enjoying a healthy meal. Picture the changes in your life that will come with improved health, more energy, better mood, enhanced self-esteem. The clearer and more vivid your mental image, the more your brain will begin to scan your environment for cues and opportunities to make this vision a reality. But here's where the magic happens. When you begin to visualize your goal, you're not just creating a mental image. You're actively wiring your brain for success. When your brain is constantly focused on a goal, it begins to perceive the world through the lens of that goal. Opportunities that you once overlooked or ignored will start to stand out. For example, if you've set a goal to improve your career, you might suddenly notice job openings that align with your skills, or you might find yourself having conversations that lead to valuable connections. This isn't coincidence. It's your RAS working on your behalf, bringing your attention to the things that matter most for achieving your goal. However, it's important to remember that just thinking about your goals isn't enough. Action is the key to turning those visions into reality. While visualization helps to prime your brain, you must take concrete steps toward your goal, even if they are small. This is where consistency comes in. You can visualize your ideal job or your fitness goals every day, but unless you start applying for jobs or working out regularly, your brain's efforts won't translate into anything tangible. Starting small is key. For instance, if you want to run a marathon but you've never run before, don't try to tackle 26 miles right away. Instead, start with short, manageable runs a few times a week. Your brain needs to see progress, even if it's slow, so it can reinforce the idea that your goal is achievable. Every time you take a step, no matter how small, your brain recognizes it as a success, reinforcing the belief that you're on the right path. The brain thrives on small wins. As you make progress, the neural pathways associated with that goal strengthen. These small actions, repeated over time, will compound, and over time, you'll look back and realize how much closer you've come to your goal. It's this gradual process, powered by consistency and focus, that turns your vision into reality. But what about those inevitable moments when your motivation wanes or obstacles arise? We've all experienced times when things don't go as planned, when frustration sets in, or when the weight of past failures creeps in. This is when the importance of patience and self-compassion becomes clear. It's easy to feel defeated when things don't go as expected, but this is when you need to remind yourself that progress is not always linear. This is where flexibility plays a vital role. Life will inevitably throw curveballs, and there will be days when you can't stick to your plan. But instead of letting those days derail you, learn to adjust and adapt. If you miss a workout or don't complete a task, don't give up entirely. Instead, ask yourself, what can I do to get back on track? A flexible mindset allows you to navigate setbacks without feeling defeated, which helps you stay on course toward your goal. The key to lasting change lies in this ability to stay adaptable while maintaining consistency. When you have a clear vision of what you want and a flexible approach to achieving it, you're much more likely to succeed in the long run. Consistency doesn't mean rigidly following a plan without deviation. It means showing up every day, doing what you can, and making progress, even if it's slower than you'd like. Another important element in sustaining motivation is surrounding yourself with positive influences. This could mean seeking out people who encourage your growth, finding a community that shares your goals, or engaging in activities that help keep your energy up. Our social environments play a significant role in shaping our mindset. When you're surrounded by people who inspire you, who believe in you, and who hold you accountable, your chances of success increase exponentially. But the most important thing is to remember that this journey is your own. The voice that used to be your biggest critic can become your greatest cheerleader if you take the time to nurture it. Every small step you take is a victory, and each victory reinforces the belief that you are capable of achieving your dreams. Now that we've established how to nurture your goals and keep your focus sharp, it's time to dive into something even more fundamental, the consistency required to see long-term change. In the next section, we'll explore how to maintain that momentum, stay on track during challenging times, and build a lifestyle that supports your transformation. Because true growth isn't about making huge leaps in a short time, it's about building a foundation that sustains you for the long haul. As we continue to work on creating lasting change in our lives, it's crucial to understand that true transformation isn't about a quick fix or a single burst of motivation. It's about maintaining momentum, sticking to the course, and building habits that will serve us in the long run. This is where consistency becomes a game changer. Without it, the initial excitement and motivation will eventually fade and will fall back into old patterns. But when consistency is maintained, even on the tough days, change becomes inevitable. One of the most powerful ways to maintain this momentum is to create a clear and structured plan. When we have a plan, we know exactly what to do, and we reduce the overwhelming feeling that often comes with uncertainty. It's easy to say, I want to get healthier, or I want to change my life. But without a concrete plan, it can feel like a distant dream. Having a roadmap gives us direction and ensures that we take consistent, actionable steps toward our goal every single day. To make this plan work, break down your larger goals into smaller, more manageable tasks. For example, instead of saying, I want to get fit, set a specific goal like, I will walk for 30 minutes 3 times a week. This concrete goal gives your mind a clear target and a measurable step to take. When you break your goal down like this, you make it easier to take consistent action and track your progress, which reinforces your commitment. Another essential component of consistency is routine. The brain loves routines because they reduce decision fatigue and make actions automatic. When you establish a regular routine, whether it's for exercise, work, or personal growth, your brain can anticipate what's coming next, making it easier to stick to your plan. And as you continue to follow your routine, your brain starts to recognize that these actions are not only important, but they also bring you closer to your goal. Over time, this routine becomes ingrained, making it harder to break. But routine alone isn't enough. Life will always throw challenges your way. There will be days when things don't go according to plan. You'll miss a workout, skip a meal prep, or forget to follow through on a task. When this happens, it's easy to feel discouraged, but the key to maintaining consistency is to approach these setbacks with flexibility and kindness. Rather than seeing these moments as failures, use them as opportunities to adjust your plan. Life is unpredictable, and setbacks are a natural part of any growth process. What matters is how you respond to them. One way to build this flexibility into your approach is to set realistic expectations. If you expect perfection, you'll be setting yourself up for frustration. Instead, aim for progress. If you miss a workout, don't write off the entire week. Instead, adjust your schedule and get back on track the next day. If you skip a healthy meal, focus on making better choices the next time. The goal isn't to be flawless. It's to keep moving forward, step by step. Self-compassion is key in this process. We often beat ourselves up when we slip up or when things don't go as planned. However, this negative self-talk only fuels feelings of guilt and frustration, which can derail our progress. Instead of criticizing yourself, practice self-compassion. Treat yourself the way you would treat a friend who is going through a tough time. Remind yourself that setbacks are part of the journey, not signs of failure. By being kind to yourself, you'll be more likely to stay on track and continue making progress. In addition to self-compassion, it's also essential to have a support system. Surround yourself with people who encourage and motivate you. Whether it's friends, family, or a support group, having people to lean on during challenging times can make a world of difference. These individuals can offer advice, share their own experiences, and remind you of why you started this journey in the first place. A strong support system can help you stay grounded and motivated, especially when the going gets tough. Remember, the journey toward change is not a sprint, but a marathon. The small, consistent actions you take today will compound over time, leading to significant changes down the road. Success isn't measured by big, dramatic shifts, but by the steady progress you make. The key is to show up every day, do what you can, and focus on the long-term benefits of the changes you're making. As you continue to move forward, don't forget to celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Each step forward is a victory, and taking time to acknowledge your achievements will help fuel your motivation. This can be as simple as reflecting on your week and noting the positive steps you've taken, or treating yourself to a small reward after completing a task. Celebrating your wins helps reinforce the positive behaviors and attitudes you're cultivating, making it more likely that you'll continue down the path toward your goals. But the journey doesn't stop once you've built a routine or reached your first milestone. To truly transform your life, you need to keep feeding your mind with new goals, fresh challenges, and ongoing growth. When you've accomplished one goal, set another. This keeps your mind engaged, prevents stagnation, and continues to push you to grow. It's important to keep the momentum alive by creating new visions for your future and finding new ways to evolve. This is where the concept of growth mindset becomes powerful. A growth mindset is the belief that you can always improve, learn, and evolve. It's not about seeing yourself as fixed or limited in any way. Instead, it's about embracing challenges, knowing that failure is simply part of the learning process, and trusting that with effort and perseverance, you can continue to grow. A growth mindset helps you maintain enthusiasm for the journey ahead, no matter how challenging it may be at times. By adopting this mindset, you begin to see obstacles as opportunities to learn rather than roadblocks to your progress. You stop viewing challenges as threats and instead see them as stepping stones that will ultimately help you build a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. This shift in perspective is incredibly powerful and will help you maintain your motivation, no matter how difficult things get. As we've seen, the road to transformation is one of small, consistent steps, fueled by a clear plan, flexibility, self-compassion, and support. The key to long-term success lies in staying grounded, being kind to yourself, and recognizing that progress is made through steady, intentional actions. In the next part, we'll explore how to solidify these habits and sustain your transformation over time, ensuring that the changes you've made are not just temporary but lasting. As we reach the final stage of this transformation journey, it's time to focus on how to ensure that the changes you've made are not temporary, but part of a lasting shift in your life. True transformation happens when the new habits you've developed become second nature, when the changes you've worked so hard to create are not something you have to think about constantly, but become integrated into your daily routine. This is where we move from a state of change to a state of living intentionally, with purpose and clarity. The key to making your transformation sustainable is to ensure that the new habits and ways of thinking become part of your identity. When you start to identify with the person you are becoming, the behaviors and thought patterns you've cultivated will no longer feel like something you have to force. Instead, they will feel like a natural extension of who you are. This is why it's so important to start small and build a foundation of consistent, manageable actions. By focusing on small, attainable goals, you not only make it easier to succeed, but you also build a positive feedback loop that reinforces your new identity. For example, if your goal is to become a more organized person, start by establishing simple routines like tidying up your workspace at the end of each day. Don't try to overhaul everything at once. As you continue with this small action, it will gradually become part of who you are. Over time, you'll start to identify as someone who is organized and intentional, and those small actions will snowball into more significant changes. But there's more to sustainability than just building new habits. It's also about maintaining a growth mindset. As you progress, new challenges will arise, your goals will evolve, and the path won't always be smooth. But with a growth mindset, you'll approach these challenges as opportunities for further growth, rather than seeing them as setbacks. A growth mindset helps you embrace uncertainty and adversity, knowing that every challenge is a chance to learn, adapt, and improve. It's this mindset that keeps the momentum going and prevents you from getting stuck when things don't go as planned. Another critical component of maintaining lasting transformation is self-reflection. It's important to regularly check in with yourself, evaluate your progress, and make adjustments when needed. Reflection helps you stay connected to your goals and reminds you why you started this journey in the first place. It also allows you to recognize when you've made significant strides, even if they don't always feel obvious on a day-to-day basis. This sense of progress is vital to staying motivated. You can reflect in various ways, journaling, meditating, or simply taking a few minutes each day to think about what you've accomplished and what still needs work. The key is to make it a habit. Regular reflection helps you stay grounded and allows you to celebrate your wins, no matter how small, while also giving you the clarity to adjust your approach if necessary. Equally important is the concept of self-compassion, especially when things don't go according to plan. It's natural to feel discouraged when you experience setbacks or when progress seems slow, but in these moments it's crucial to treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend. When you make mistakes or miss a goal, remind yourself that growth isn't linear. You don't have to be perfect, and the process of change is messy. Be patient with yourself and remember that every step, no matter how small, is part of the journey. One of the most powerful things you can do to solidify your transformation is to continually feed your brain with positive reinforcement. This means surrounding yourself with things that inspire and uplift you, whether it's reading, listening to podcasts, watching videos, or engaging in conversations that motivate you. The more you expose yourself to positive influences, the easier it will be to maintain the mindset you've worked so hard to cultivate. Another strategy for long-term success is to create a support system of like-minded people who share your values and goals. Surrounding yourself with a community that understands your journey and encourages your growth can make a significant difference. Whether it's friends, family, or an online group, having people to hold you accountable and share in your victories helps you stay motivated and connected to your purpose. Remember, transformation is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about showing up every day, doing what you can, and making small, deliberate changes that add up over time. The work you're doing now is creating the foundation for a new way of being, a way of being that is grounded in purpose, clarity, and self-compassion. To ensure that this transformation lasts, you must commit to it daily. It's about making intentional choices, aligning your actions with your values, and staying focused on your goals, even when it gets tough. As you continue to grow, be mindful of how far you've come and embrace the process. The changes you've made will become a part of you, shaping the person you are today and the person you will continue to become. Finally, don't forget to celebrate your achievements, no matter how small they seem. Every step forward is worth recognizing. Taking time to celebrate your wins, whether it's through reflection, a small reward, or simply acknowledging your progress, helps reinforce the positive changes you're making. It reminds you that you're on the right path and that the work you're doing is paying off. Transformation is a journey, not a destination. The key to long-lasting change is building sustainable habits, maintaining a growth mindset, and being kind to yourself every step of the way. By committing to this process and staying focused on your goals, you'll continue to evolve into the best version of yourself. Remember, you have the power to shape your future, and with every decision you make, you're building a life that aligns with your true potential. Thank you for joining me on this journey. The best version of yourself is always within reach. Keep moving forward, one step at a time, and you'll continue to grow, evolve, and transform your life in ways you never thought possible. You've got this.